Hey, good day, everyone. It's been a while since I've recorded anything. Been kind of a hectic month, I guess. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit about that at the end here. It is April 1st, and I'm just going to maybe do a short response here. David Velasquez in Church Split Apologetics discussion group has written a very nice post with a question. He says he's reading Calvin and C.S. Lewis, the book that I wrote. Thanks very much for picking that up, David. He says he's really enjoying the book so far. One question he has is in relation to the following statement. So, quote, classical theists believe that sovereignty is a characteristic of God attributed to him. Sovereignty is not essential to the nature of God because there was nothing for God to be sovereign over before he created, unquote. And then David says, I understand what this is saying, but also, isn't sovereignty more or less the ability of being in control over anything, including ideas and things to be? I don't know that you need creation to have sovereignty. The ability to have sovereignty over creation seems like sovereignty in and of itself. And then he says, good book so far, Jordan. Really enjoying how well laid out everything is. So thanks very much for the compliment. So let me just try and respond with a few thoughts. First, when I wrote the book, I did differentiate between Reformed theology and classical theism. And that is a little bit, has caused some confusion because both Augustine and Aquinas are considered classical theists. So, Augustinian classical theism is different from Thomistic classical theism. And in the book, I didn't explain that. I just used Reformed theology versus classical theism. So, what I am arguing for in the book is Thomistic classical theism. So, the statement that I wrote in the book comes from, this is Geisler's Systematic Theology. Let me read this to you. Geisler writes, there are some non-moral traits that characterize God. These involve how God, in his essential attributes, relates to his creatures. They include sovereignty, transcendence, immanence, omnipresence, and ineffability. Without a creation, God would have nothing to be sovereign over, transcendent above, immanent in, or omnipresent to. God's essential attributes, however, are proper to his nature as such, even if there were no creatures with or whom or which to relate. So, what this is trying to avoid is what is called subordinationism. So, subordinationism, according to Geisler, is a heresy that was condemned at the Council of Constantinople in the year 381. It asserts that the Son is subordinate in nature to the Father. So, to say that God was sovereign over, or that the Son was functionally, or not functionally. Man, let me look it up again. That the Son was subordinate in nature to the Father is subordinationism. And what we're trying to avoid, what I was trying to avoid in my explanation, is to make God sovereign over his individual attributes. So, what Augustine did with Augustinian classical theism, or what is called Reformed theology, is he conceives of God as a form of will, which is where the part of where the Reformed comes from. That God is sovereign. His sovereign will is over his attributes. And this comes from Romans 9, that God is sovereign over his attributes of love and hate. So God is sovereign over those attributes. Therefore, God can sovereignly choose to love the elect, and God can sovereignly choose to hate the reprobates before creation for no reason whatsoever, just because he's sovereign. So when David said, sovereignty more or less is the ability to be in control, over his creation, that would be the correct definition, that he's sovereign over that. So what I'm trying to avoid in the book is to explain the difference between saying that God is sovereign over his attributes versus God is sovereign over his creation. So sovereignty wasn't an attribute because there's nothing for God to be sovereign over until he created. So the other thing that we're trying to avoid is, so this is Richard Rice. This is kind of where open theism, at least popularly now, has come from. And open theism does the same thing. It says that God is sovereign over his omniscience. So God sovereignly chooses what he wants to know and what he doesn't want to know about the future. So God could know what you're going to eat tomorrow for breakfast, but he chooses not to. So it's doing the same thing, because open theism is, sides with Augustine's view of God instead of Thomas's view of God. So God is sovereign over his omniscience, just like in Calvinism, God is sovereign over his attributes of love and hate. So hopefully that helps you understand at least what I was trying to drive at in that section of the book. And then I just, real quick, I guess I can give you a kind of a goings on in my life if you're interested in that. About 6 weeks ago, I started getting heartburn, just a lot of stress in my life with things that are going on. And I take my dogs for a walk, and it just felt like the cold air was like really hurting my lungs. So I went to the doctor, and he said there's nothing wrong with my lungs and gave me omeprazole, which is that, it's one of the P ones, the one for heartburn. And Pepsid, that's what it is. So it's Pepsid. And he gave me an EKG, and he said my EKG looked like I'd had a massive heart attack over a year ago. They drew my blood, said I hadn't had a heart attack. So he wanted me to go see a specialist because I hadn't been in the doctor for 8 years, and I'd never had an EKG. So he said there's nothing, anyway. So I went to see a heart specialist. He gave me another EKG, said the problem previously wasn't there, but now there's a new problem. The only way to clear me was to do a heart catheterization, where they stick a camera in your heart and look and see what's going on, which was quite scary to me. And he just set me up to schedule that. So I went up to the desk, and she's like, you can come in next week, come in next month. And I was like, man, I don't want this hanging over my head. I don't want to be thinking about it. So I just took the next week, Wednesday, and I went in, and it's quite an ordeal. They said 6 hours from door to door. Said I'd be on the table for 40 minutes. Well, I ended up being on the table for an hour and a half. I got 4 hits of fentanyl, and I just want to tell you that the second side effect of fentanyl is supposed to be euphoria, and I got none of that. So fentanyl does not give me euphoria, if you're wondering. But anyways, he went in there. He said I have very little plaque in my heart, but the vein that's called the widowmaker was 92% blocked. So they stuck in a stent, and now I'm on a bunch of drugs I got to take every day. So I guess I'm glad to be alive. He was really shocked that I could do what I did, because I walk my dogs 2 to 5 miles every day, and I go up and down stairs all the time because we have a 2-story house, and my workshop's in the basement, my office is in the basement, and he said to me, when you get to the top of the stairs, do you have to like stop and catch your breath? And I'm like, no, I get to the top of the stairs and then I go up the other flight. So it was really weird. They were really surprised, I guess, but the EKG showed it, and I had the heart cath done. So here I am, still around, still causing troubles, still harassing Will Hess. So thanks for the question. Hopefully this helped you out. If you have any more, feel free to ask. Thank you.